Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Captain's Table. I'm your host, Captain B-Nard. Quick announcement before we start today. Due to the massive issues that I was having with my video stream quality and my video editing software, today's podcast is going to be audio only, minus the beautiful thumbnail that I have crafted for you guys right here. So, having said that, our topic of discussion today is going to be the current state of The Walking Dead, popular horror slash drama TV show on AMC, although not nearly as popular now as it once was. And we are going to talk a lot about why that is. Here to discuss that with me today is a fellow Walking Dead aficionado, a man known simply as Mitchelonius. Mitchelonius, welcome to the Captain's Table.
Thank you for having me, Captain.
No
I'm very
problem.
happy to be here.
No problem, buddy. So, just little bit of background first. You are familiar with both the TV show and the comic book aspect of the show, correct?
Correct.
All right, yes, and as am I. So we're going to be doing a lot of comparisons to the TV show and the comic book ends, especially since recently they have drastically departed from each other with the events of season 8 on the TV show, which we are going to talk quite a lot about today. So we are about, I want to say, a few weeks away from the season 9 premiere right now. So I want to start off by spending a lot of time talking about kind of how season 8 left the franchise. Because if I had to sum that up or describe that in one word, unfortunately, that word would be shit, to be honest with you. I don't know if you can think of a better one. Um,
No, shit's definitely right up there on the list.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, and there are a lot of reasons for that. So, we'll start off with the season 8 finale, which was obviously the last piece of you know, Walking Dead we got on TV. But before I do that, I do want to throw out a quick spoiler warning to anyone who may be listening, because we will be talking about everything that happened in season 8, basically everything that happened up until this point, not only in the TV show but also on in the comic. So, as well as the season 9 trailer in quite detail as well. So that is the official spoiler warning. If you guys have not seen any of that stuff, that is what we will be talking about. So, I guess we'll get started then. So, season 8, like I said, summarize one word: shit. Unfortunately, um, so season 8 finale. I don't know about you, but I felt that the season 8 finale was incredibly anticlimactic. Unfortunately,
I mean, I completely agree, especially with the way that things happened in the comics. I mean, they left essentially the scene where, to go back a little bit, where they killed Glenn.
right?
They led on to think that that wasn't going to happen with a couple extra deaths. And sure enough, that's an iconic moment in Walking Dead. Therefore, if you don't change something like that, and that keeps people coming back, and then you go and
Change something
you
as
just do
drastically.
something completely obscure than what it almost like it's almost like you would have rather have just read the comic.
Yeah, that's
I think when
that's
that happens
true.
to a show, that's a pretty big deal.
Big problem.
I mean,
Yeah.
and not only that, uh, I saw this coming. I want to say, I mean, and I'm sure you would agree with this. I saw this coming when you take the creator of The Walking Dead out of the picture.
Yeah.
What do you really expect?
Yeah.
Now
Yep.
it's left to whoever and whatever, and that's exactly what we're getting is whatever.
Yes, and we're definitely going to talk a lot about that later. The whole what's going on behind the scenes of The Walking Dead and why that it's why what's happening is happening, essentially. But to get back to the original point, your point, the way that they did the end of the war in the comic was just so much better than the way that they did it on the TV show. And like you said, when you have that happen, that is a huge problem, in my opinion, definitely. Especially since you figure they spent 2.5 seasons of the TV show focused on the Saviors and Negan and the war and all that stuff. 2.5 full seasons dedicated to that storyline arc, and to have it end like that was just completely unacceptable in my opinion. And at first I was, when I watched it the first time, I was like, okay, whatever. But the more I watched it, the more I think about it, the more it really kind of gets at me, you know what I mean? Like it really just eats at me more because it was done so much better in the comic than it was done in the TV show. So, if you want, I would like to, for those of you who don't know, we'll go through exactly what happened on the TV show versus what happened in the comics. So I guess I'll start, if you want, I'll start by explaining how season 8 ended, or how the war arc ended in the TV show. And then if you want to explain how it ended in the comic for a compare and contrast, I think that would be good.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
Okay, so the way that everything ended on the TV show, which most of you who are listening probably already know. So the end of the war is this. Negan's men corner Rick's men, and it really looks like it's all over for Rick, and they're basically going to be mowed down. When they go to fire, their guns backfire because Eugene sabotaged the bullets, which, we kind of all saw coming, but that was still a pretty epic moment. At that point, Rick's men, rush the field and either kill or capture, all the saviors. Negan runs away. Rick runs after him. They get into a brief altercation before Rick basically uses the sympathy that Negan has for the fact that Carl is dead at this point, and Negan, obviously, in some twisted way, was almost kind of like a father figure to Carl, and actually did care about Carl. So Rick basically uses the fact that Carl's dead to make Negan let his guard down so he can slit his throat. Negan goes down. That's it. So, then the doctor rushes up, and, Rick tells the doctor to save Negan's life rather than, let him die, because he wants to set some kind of example for, everybody, that the war is over. We don't have to fight anymore, which is, all well and good. But at the same time, there is a lot of content that happened in the comic that was left out of that. So, yeah. So if you
Well, no, it's I was just kind of thinking about a couple things you said,
okay.
and I mean, one of the major things that, first of all, Carl's not dead.
Yeah, that's a big one that we're gonna talk a lot about later too.
So but that plays into what we're talking about now, because if you think about, the chain of reaction of things, right?
Right.
I mean, if Carl was still alive, a lot of what happened in the show wouldn't have happened.
Right.
Okay, because Rick was the one to be like, we need to save him. We need to save him, right?
Uh-huh.
And Carl was the one that was about to kill him.
In the comic. Yes.
That's a major difference as well.
Right.
So I feel like the ending was similar but different, just to the degree of in what The
Carl's
Walking Dead
absence.
does in general.
Yeah.
Is that they kind of they trade in and out different characters, like, Michonne and Andrea.
Right.
Andrea is the one supposed to be with Rick, not Michonne.
Right.
Like they the way that they kind of
They,
try to separate themselves from the comic,
they try
but
to,
still,
yeah, I see
because
what you're saying. They try to basically, they give the plot points that certain characters played out in the comic, they give them to different characters on the show.
right, like for example, something that kind of I felt like took away from Negan
Right.
was when him and Rick were fighting, and Rick slit his throat.
Yeah.
that's where it ended.
Yes.
In the comic,
That was only the
I
beginning.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, Rick slit his throat. Negan held his neck, and he beat Rick to a pulp before he lost so much blood that he fell over.
Yes. And a big part of that was the fact that in during that fight where he beats Rick within an inch of his life while holding his slit throat together with one of his hands, which is completely badass, mind you, which is a badass thing that I think a lot of people would have liked to see that we didn't get to see.
Or
Um,
even expected that of him, you know?
exactly, yeah. Um, we have at that point Negan breaks Rick's leg, which adds another element of it because I believe at the end of that, when the doctor rushes up and Rick and Negan are both down, the doctor goes to tend to Rick, right? And Rick says, "No, don't worry about me. Save him." Right?
Yeah, Negan broke Rick's femur in the comic
Right.
before he fell down himself, and in the comic, yeah, the doctor came to tend to Rick, and Carl was about to kill Negan,
Yes.
and Rick, um, you know, at that point, I don't know what changed his mind because it wasn't the fact that Carl died and wanted this. Like Carl was the one getting ready to do it.
Yes.
Um, he that's when he made the command to save Negan. Don't worry about his leg at the moment. You know, go save him now, kind of
Right.
thing. And Carl disagreed in a great way, but respected his father. And another thing is, I mean, not to divulge into season 9 too much, but
Right.
I mean, just from what I've seen, you know, if Negan's locked up, then Carl isn't able to go visit him now. So who's
Right.
going to do that? You know, who's going
Exactly.
to become that close figure to Negan
Right.
in the next season? You
Right.
know, it's just there's so much left to speculate on, and it only seems like every option is just going to make it worse.
Yes, that is 100% true. I would definitely agree with that. Another thing, the big thing for me, in that moment, looking ahead to season 9 and how it ties in, is the fact that because Rick, at least in the comic anyway, because Rick made the decision to have the Doctor tend to Negan versus him, now Rick's leg is permanently messed up, which is why he is not of a whole lot of use going forward in the comic. He walks with a cane, right? And he's older because, as we'll talk about later, in between season 8 and season 9 on the TV show, the corresponding comics, there is a significant time hop, time jump. So Rick is older when they
Yeah,
pick back up. So that's a huge thing to me. And they actually kind of alluded to this earlier in season 8 when they had when Carl was having like those hallucinations, like those flash forwards where he was picturing like a future where Rick was like old and walking with a cane and that kind of thing. Like that was, now we know that that was kind of the writer's hat tip to like what the comic wanted the future to be, but because of the changes on the TV show, obviously the future we're going to get in season 9 is going to be much different from what the comic wanted it to be. But that's
well,
kind of
I
why
mean,
they showed us that, I think.
just kind of off of what you were saying, what we were both speaking about as far as like the differences between the comics, and I, I don't want to put all the blame on the producers and on the writing team because even when Robert Kirkman was a part of The Walking Dead, it was much greater.
It still had its
My
problems,
point as far as
obviously.
changes go is that the changes actually made the show better. Like it wasn't like Robert Kirkman was in an interview that I seen, and
Right.
he stated that he is doing things different in the show uh, for the reason of what he regretted doing in the comics that he wished he could change, and now that he has the opportunity to do so, he's going to do it. Which, like I said, his changes were positive. One example of that is Rick, for example. We just spoke about Rick now being hobbled
Right.
for the future. well, not only was he hobbled in the comics, but Rick was also missing a hand.
Exactly. Yes, that's a
And
huge difference.
yes, and he had a hook for a hand. So now he has one arm, one leg that work perfectly fine, and then he has one leg that's hobbled and one arm
With a hook
without a
hand on
hand.
it. Yeah.
So he's getting older. So yeah, that does make you think he's useless, or
Yeah.
becoming irrelevant, and that's where Carl was supposed to be the next, be the
To
the comeuppance,
step up and
you
almost
know.
become like almost take over the main character role. Yeah, and that's
Yeah,
the death of Carl is something that I want to talk a lot about a little bit later because that is a huge problem, and I will go on record and say the biggest mistake that the show has ever made, hands down, is the decision to kill off Carl's character for a plethora of different reasons. Um, but yeah, no,
but
that is
just as
definitely true. Going back to Rick,
just
he,
to finish my point on
yeah,
Rick
go ahead.
and the change,
Yeah,
um, Rick now having a hand
yeah,
was able to do things throughout the season that he wouldn't he and didn't do in the comics. Like Rick was a fighter, but not exactly in the
right. Well, he was
comics.
as much of
Like
a fighter as a one-handed man could be, you know.
yeah, I mean prior to the hand, he lost his hand in the comics at Terminus when they
Right,
thought they found the first sanctuary.
right. So that would have been
Um,
season
this,
5 as far as the TV show is concerned.
right, and they held in the TV show they held the guy's neck and sliced it and let the blood run through,
Hmm.
but um, what they did keep similar, and this again, a nice change was they still included what was in the comics into the show to a degree.
Just in a different
In the
way.
comics, Rick said when they asked what was in the bag,
Hmm.
he said an assortment of guns. He said, and then he talked about the red-handled machete, and he
Yes,
told him that he was going to use the red-handled machete to kill him. And the guy
yes,
was like, "Oh, really?" And walked around the side, had them hold out Rick's hand and say, "What, were you going to use this hand to do it?" and cut it off.
yeah,
Now, in the TV series, someone's throat got slit, and then Rick threatened him the same way he threatened him in the comics. It looked like they were about to do something to him, and then explosions, thanks to
Car-
Carol,
I was gonna
started
say
to happen.
Carol was waging warfare, laying siege to them outside, which kind of saved him there. But yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
But that I agree with you, and that's a big thing for me is that um, I am not someone who believes that the TV show has to follow the comics to the letter. No, and I know you aren't either, but you have to know that we believe that if you're going to make a change, because the script is already written, okay? These comics are already written, and that's the script for the TV show, essentially. So if you're going to make changes to that script, they better damn well be good changes, you know what I mean? Like, positive changes are fine, but when you change things in drastically negative ways, like we've seen them do the last couple of seasons, especially, um, that's definitely an issue. But yeah, no, I get your point and I agree with you completely that there have definitely been plenty of positive changes and improvements over the comic to the TV show that we've been experiencing up until the last couple of seasons, I want to say. But that's kind of where everything has started to go downhill there. But yeah, so but as far as season 8 goes, back to that, I want to say kind of the two biggest takeaways, or the only two big takeaways I have from season 8 after its ending are obviously number one, the war being over, which again is a good thing in my opinion because the war drug on for way too long on the TV show. Like I mentioned before, 2.5 seasons of you know the Saviors and Negan and the war. I mean, hell, they spent an entire half of season fighting the Saviors before Negan was even introduced into the TV show, right? So It's like
No, exactly.
just so much time spent on this arc is just kind of crazy to me. But the second big takeaway, obviously, which we will talk about a lot, how awful it is obviously the fact that they in the TV show killed off Carl, which is obviously a huge, huge, huge change from the comics because, as we mentioned before, not only is Carl supposed to be alive and well, minus the eye, of course, at this point in the comic, in the next arc in the comic, which we'll talk a lot about, he is supposed to kind of take over almost as the main character of the series because, again, everybody's older. That means Carl is, a young man at this point, maybe in his early 20s, you would say. Rick is older. He's hobbled because of the fight with Negan. He's missing a hand, at least in the comics anyway. So he is not of a ton of use, from a physical standpoint anymore. So, that is obviously a huge thing. So going forward without Carl, like there are just so many problems with this. Like I don't even know where to start. I don't know if you want to start somewhere on this because I.
Well, I mean, but and then the other thing is too. I mean, just because if we're still talking about that final
the
moment,
right.
a part that I left out because I didn't really feel it was too relevant as far as Rick and I'm sorry. I didn't realize that my mic. I was having a little bit of technical difficulties. I hit the mute
That's
button.
okay, buddy.
Um, so what I was saying though, as far as that final episode goes, there are some parts that we left out that aren't even present in the the season finale because
Hmm.
in that last moment when Rick slices his neck and Negan falls to his knees and
Yeah.
you know save him, whatever, and directly after that, did you see Dwight doing anything?
Not that I can remember. No.
Did anybody watching see Dwight do anything? Well, let me tell you what happens in the comics though, because Dwight, being a part of everything that was going on, he grabs Lucille,
Hmm.
right,
Yeah.
and he takes control and commands the Saviors.
Really
Yeah.
nice. That.
Um. So because he pretty much like just because Negan's throat got slashed, like the Saviors didn't stop shooting.
Right.
So Dwight grabs Lucille,
Yeah.
right, and tells the Saviors to stop shooting,
Right. Yeah, and
and
that's
he
a
pretty
drastic
much
difference, obviously. In the then
yeah
because in the TV show it was kind of like Rick's men just kind of like rushed them and and basically captured them all.
right.
So
And I mean, and no one was happy with the fact that Rick wanted to save Negan. Like
oh,
Rick, the whole
absolutely.
time, like in the TV series, was "I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna kill you," and in the comics, no, that's you know, um,
Yeah.
it's
No, it's a big difference,
it's
absolutely.
it's a disappointment though, is what it is, because like you said, you invest all this time, this build up, and I
Yeah, that's
mean,
the
in the
thing.
comparison to how long it takes to read a comic to how long it takes to wait for a season of a show to come out, I mean, you would expect a lot more. You know what I
Absolutely,
mean?
dude. 2.5 years, like I said, 2.5 years of the arc of that arc, and
Yeah,
you can read a comic
it's
book in
terrible.
what, like 5 minutes, and you spend 2.5 years watching this show for it to end like that. I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought us back to season 8 though, because there is one thing that is kind of relevant going forward. At the that happened at the end of season 8 too, and that is that really awkward scene toward the end where you have Maggie and Daryl and Jesus like plotting against Rick at the hilltop. You know what I'm talking about, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that was really awkward on the show, obviously. Um, don't want to spend too much time talking about it, but that's going to be kind of an important plot point, or at least based on what we've seen in the trailer for season 9. That seems like it's going to be an important plot point heading into season 9. But yeah, basically what went down with that was you have Maggie talking to Daryl in her office at the hilltop, and they're basically saying, "Oh, Rick is going to pay for sparing Negan's life," and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, you can kind of understand why Maggie would be upset because if you remember back to the beginning of everything, or the, you know,
Yeah, I mean,
the
I can only think of
infamous,
one person.
yeah, the
I can only imagine why Maggie
yeah,
uh, would be upset about that decision. And I honestly, I don't know why Rick wouldn't have taken that into consideration.
yeah,
I
no,
mean, he
the
almost killed
infamous,
your son in front of you. Like,
the infamous
if that
season
tiger would,
6 finale.
if that tiger wouldn't have attacked, Carl would have been dead
Yep, yeah, you're going
earlier than he died.
going back to, that was, I believe, the season 7 finale, right? That you're talking about. I think it was where,
Yeah.
yeah, Shiva saved Carl from Negan at the end of that. Yeah, definitely. Um,
Negan's famous shit line.
yeah, yeah, that's the taste of shit, Thomas, and it don't taste good. That's a good one. Yeah,
Yes,
Negan's
it
got a
is.
lot of great one-liners, obviously, which, you know, personally, I feel like keeping Negan alive was a good move. You know, not only to stay true to the comics, but the character of Negan brought something to the show that the show had been lacking for some time, and that's kind of a big picture thing that I want to talk about in just a second. But I do want to finish my thought with the hilltop. So basically with the plotting against Rick thing, okay, I can understand Maggie, right? Because obviously they all witnessed her husband be brutally murdered before their very eyes by Negan. So obviously you can understand Maggie would be upset with that. Now, I don't know if it may or may not be a little bit of a stretch to say that, you know, Maggie would be so upset to the point that she would want to plot some kind of rebellion against Rick. That might be a little bit of a stretch. Um, as far as Daryl goes, like, yes, we've seen Daryl and Rick have their differences in the past, but it kind of felt like that was all behind them. I don't know about you, but I felt like Daryl and Rick had kind of gotten on the same page again, and they had kind of put their differences behind them toward the end of the season. Um,
Well, I think I don't know. I mean, I don't feel Daryl was pleased with Negan living either.
oh, not at all. No one was, but see, that's the thing that's
So I think no matter how much amends was made and how much people are okay with each other again, I think in the end though, like that moment that Rick made that decision was so it was so much more detrimental to the group than what we even see because of the
fair
history
point.
that
Fair
all
point.
everything Negan's done and created. I mean, he had fucking Daryl eating dog food sandwiches and like get beat the shit out
He
of
was
and
on Easy
like
Street. Yeah, I
well,
remember that.
oh yeah, I mean that right there. And then
Yeah.
what he didn't he also throw him into the where the walkers were like stuck on the pikes and shit. Like
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. I feel like the history between the characters and Negan. I mean, you've got
You think that would be enough to push them over the
Maggie
edge?
and Glenn, and you've got you just
The whole thing with
um,
Daryl, and then yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess I can.
Sasha, and with how many core members, or even well, not exactly core members, but with how many members of the group
Mainish
he's killed
characters.
that we've gotten to enjoy and like.
Yeah,
Oh, he gets to live? Yeah, I don't think I would be too thrilled. I think I probably would have like kicked Rick in his broken leg when he said that. Like he's
yeah,
delirious, kill him.
yeah, yeah. No, I was gonna say, like, I guess I can understand. Like, the more I think about it in that light, the more I can understand it. But then you have the icing on the cake of all this is Jesus, as he is
Oh
there
God.
plotting with them to, you know, revolt against Rick, and that, I'm sorry, but that made no sense to me on on any level, because Jesus is a character who has been doing nothing but preaching, you know, second chances and, you know,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. So him being in that room with Daryl and Maggie is completely inconsistent with everything we've been told about his character up until this point. So I guess the only argument you can make is that, yes, you know, he's basically Maggie's right hand man, so he would want to support her. But at the same time, like, we've seen him disagree with her a ton of times throughout the course of their relationship. So you would figure, you know, that would make just no sense to me that they would do that. But um, you know, it is what it is. I guess we'll have to see how it plays out going into season 9. Like I said, if you pay attention to the season 9 trailer, they are definitely suggesting that that is going to be a big plot point in season 9. Um, so there's that. Um, So I want to talk about now what I mentioned briefly earlier, kind of the big picture type of thing that I was alluding to, and that's talking about the show in general. So um, the thing with The Walking Dead is that, and you know this just as well as I do, being a fan of The Walking Dead has always been a roller coaster. Yes, it's always been
Yeah. Yes.
it's always
It
been
has been good, bad, good, bad.
good, bad, ugly, and everything in between, right? um,
But that's all the fillers.
yes. So yeah. So I have to say, we were talking a lot about season, 5, and stuff that happened in the last several seasons. For me, the first time, and I have to just say this, the first time that I ever came to the realization that there was something wrong with The Walking Dead was in season 5, immediately after the arc with the cannibals ended, which I thought was an amazing arc, by the way, and it was very well done in both the comic and the TV show, in my opinion. That was 4 episodes into season 5, I want to say. The next episode after that arc ended was actually the next 4 episodes after that arc ended were that whole stupid filler side story with you remember Beth, Maggie's little sister? Yeah, nobody does, right? Because that's how
Yeah,
irrelevant it
I
was.
remember her though. She was the blonde one that
Yeah, she kind of sort of
got
had a crush
ended
on
up.
Daryl, but not really, I think.
Oh, when they were drinking and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was, when they did that whole arc with her in the hospital and everybody hates Chris, I
Yeah.
was just like, what the fuck is this? Like, that was the first time in the entirety of my fandom of The Walking Dead that I took a step back and I was like, what the fuck are they doing here? Like, this is just garbage. Like, how did you feel about that? Like, really?
I felt like they needed to fill a hole while all the
Well, everything
good
else was,
story was being made, and
I guess,
they
dude,
they realized that they only made so much good story that they had to,
but
you
here's the
know,
thing,
they
though.
had to.
But here's the thing, though. They have so much good story in the comic. There is so much good source material to use that, in my opinion, there is no need for that level of filler to be used. You know what I mean? Like, I understand, okay, you expect in anything, any TV show, what movie, whatever, you expect there to be a certain level of filler, a certain amount of filler. And the formula of The Walking Dead has settled into the past, ever since season 3 basically, is 16 episode seasons, right? So you would figure
Right.
out of those 16 episodes, you would get, maybe a handful of filler episodes, like a few, that's reasonable, right? But when you're getting an entire clump of episodes like that is just 100% nonsense, just 100%, this never happened in the comic, nothing even remotely similar to this ever happened in the comic, like, that's just too far, in my opinion. It's
Yeah, like
just
there are good things that never happen in the comic and bad things. Like the good thing that never happened in the comics
right.
was this series because I'm sure it would have sucked in the comics too. But
Yeah.
um, but
Yeah.
one of the good things that came that weren't in the comics is Daryl.
Oh yeah, that's a big thing too. Is Daryl one of the main characters, one of the most important characters on the show since day one, is a character that never existed in the comic. So that's, yeah,
and
that's,
and he was the one that was really really like upset that Beth was gone as well.
yeah, that is
And
true.
yeah, I don't know if maybe that was put there specifically to kind of
Expand his
delve
character,
more
maybe.
into maybe, but still, I feel like there was definitely a better way of doing that.
Oh,
Like, you didn't
absolutely.
need Beth to like expand Daryl's character. Like,
No, not at all. Not at all.
I would have rather you resurrected Meryl or like you ran into his abusive father somewhere in the woods
Yeah,
than
exactly. That would have been fine by me, dude. Yeah, and you wouldn't have had to devote 4 episodes to it.
Oh yeah.
So, but yeah, that's so my point here of all this is that, um, after that point, we started to see a drastic increase in filler content in The Walking Dead. So that was what, 3.5 seasons ago, I want to say, that whole thing played out. So like everything after that point, we have seen a drastic increase in filler content in The Walking Dead, and
Mhm.
that is just not a good thing in my opinion. We've also seen since that point a drastic change of a lot of things from the comic to the show, and not for the better, mind you, for the worse, definitely. But my biggest point was that, going back to what I said earlier, with The Walking Dead kind of being like a roller coaster. So you have good parts of seasons, bad parts of seasons, good whole seasons, bad whole seasons. Season 8 was a big turning point in the franchise of The Walking Dead for me, because after season 7, because let's face it, season 7 was an incredibly slow, relatively uneventful season. Like can you even think of like more than like a handful of things that happened that were of any relevance in season 7?
Season 7, part 1, huh?
Just season,
Because
yeah.
that's another thing they like to do with their seasons is like
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I
split
don't
them
mean in
apart.
just part 1. I mean in the entire 16 episodes that was season 7. Okay, so you
Right.
have at the end, obviously, with like, okay, so let me dial back for a second. The
Well,
first the first half
just to
of,
elaborate,
yeah.
just real quick, just to on what you just stated about how much did I enjoy it,
Yeah, go for it.
did I find any, what did I find so great about
What
it?
did
Now
you find
here's the
meaningful
problem.
or about season 7?
Like, here's the problem with that though,
Yeah.
is that viewers, you know, Trump got elected president, so
Here we go.
America's not
We're crossing
exactly
over to the
intelligent.
we're growing to the political side here, folks. Uh,
So when you think about that, like, I'm just gonna just real quick reference something here.
go
The
for it.
very first episode
Hmm.
of season 7, if we do remember,
Yes, the
was it
conclusion
was
of the cliffhanger of who did Negan smash with Lucille.
yeah, we knew that that was more than likely going to be the most popular episode ever, no matter how much, like, there was only one moment in that episode anybody was waiting for, correct?
Yes, you're right.
Well, that they had 17.3 million viewers
For that
that day.
episode, which is probably an all-time high for them, if I'm not mistaken.
I would assume, and then as we discussed, season 7 kind of not really being
Dropped
much of shit
off.
after that.
Yeah, they dropped off. Like there's only, I mean, I get what you're trying to say. There's only one way to go but down from there, but there's
Yeah.
such a thing as
No,
taking
but
a step
they
down
went
or taking a
really
step
far
off a
down though.
cliff down. You know what I mean? Like if
They
you
went really far down. Like
yes.
it's almost like they tripped off the top step and hit the bottom one because
Yep.
it's the second episode 12.46 million, the
Yep.
third episode 11.72 million, and then
Drastic.
to not go through all 16. So
Yeah, no,
let's jump to by the time they hit the seventh episode, you're at 10.48 million.
so you're already like
The 12th episode, 10.16. Let's remember the first number I said, 17.3. Like,
yeah.
so, yeah, I mean, the numbers speak volumes, but I still feel like a show that gets that many views,
Yeah.
they kind of feel like they have the power to do whatever they want. And I think that's why we're getting what we're getting.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's a big part of the problem that's going on behind the scenes is they think, at one point they were breaking so many records with, viewers and everything. Oh, we can do whatever the fuck we want, and it's because we're breaking records, and it's like, yeah, that's true to a point, but even if that is true, like you shouldn't do it, you know what I'm trying to say? Like you shouldn't take that freedom and just, run with it to the extent that you're going to ruin your own product, because eventually, and as we're going to talk a lot about season 8 numbers a little bit later when we're talking about where the future of the Walking Dead lies, um that only lasts for so long. Okay, like you can only milk your past glory for so long, you know what I mean, till the point where fans are going to say, hey, this has been sucking for quite a while now, I'm not on board anymore. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, like
fan
now I'm bored.
exactly. I'm not on board. I'm bored. Fans will only take so much. That's the thing. And I think in the last couple of years, especially not just with The Walking Dead, but with a lot of things, there has been a lot of fan uprising and a lot of things. Specifically in The Walking Dead, I don't know if you remember this or not, or if you heard about this at the time, but after Carl, midway through season 8, was killed off, this gigantic petition to fire Scott Gimple, the showrunner, was launched, and there were a ton of people who got on board with that. And he did it.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
and he did eventually end up losing his position, thank God. But but yeah, that's definitely a problem when you get to that point. Um, but yeah, season 7, we kind of have this conundrum where, okay, you have probably the definitely one of the biggest, if not the biggest, cliffhanger of any show that I've ever watched is the season 6 cliffhanger where it's who did Negan smash, who skull did Negan smash with Lucille, right? And you come into
Eeny,
seasons.
meeny, miny, mo.
Exactly. And you come into season 7 like that. And after that, you drop off to half the season of basically Rick being under Negan's thumb and him saying, "Oh, this is the way it is now. There's nothing we can do about it." Then you spend the next
Rick
half
beaten
of
and broken.
Right, exactly. Then you spend the next half of the season with Rick saying, "Oh, never mind, we're gonna get him in secret," until the end, where Negan finally finds out that, okay, yeah, now he's not on board, and we're gonna have a war here, So most of season 7 was just a waste to me. So my again going but circling back to my point was that after how slow season 7 was, the Walking Dead franchise really needed season 8 to hit a home run for them. They really needed season 8 to be great, to be exciting, to be action packed, to be interesting, to be different. They really needed a winner with season 8, and they did not get that. And again, going back to what we talked about earlier, one of the big reasons why they didn't get that was Carl and the decision they made to kill off Carl. In my opinion, anyway, that was definitely a big one, if not the biggest one. So, uh, you know, I spent a lot of time thinking about this, and this is a big, obviously you can tell by how much we talk about it. This is a big sticking point. The decision to kill Carl off is a big sticking point for both of us and for a lot of fans, I'm sure. Um, so that kind of begs the question at this point, like, what does the future hold for The Walking Dead? Like
Right.
where do they go from here with all that? And they better go, in a positive direction, because, like I said before, the numbers, their decisions are reflected in the numbers. Okay. And I have a couple numbers that I want to throw at you as far as season 8 goes, because I mentioned, season 8 needed to turn up big for the franchise to get back on track, and it didn't. And by it didn't, I mean, okay, so you have the season 8 premiere. You had about, it says here, according to the numbers I'm reading, there were 11.4 million viewers for the season 8 premiere. Compare that to the number you just threw at us, 17.3 million viewers for the season 7 premiere. So in one season, from premiere to premiere, you've lost 6 million viewers, nearly 6 million viewers.
That dude,
That's a
that I mean, but that's nothing compared to how much further it drops.
Oh, I know, but I'm saying, like, we can all agree that's a big fucking problem, right? Like, if you
Oh
lose
yeah.
6 million viewers from premiere to premiere, that's a big fucking problem. And I was gonna say, that's nothing compared to the next number I want to throw at you, which is the season 8 finale numbers. And the number that I have here.
Oh, no, don't take him down that far just yet.
Oh,
Ease him into it.
you want to slow walk it down farther? Go for it,
Yeah,
buddy.
let's slow down the burn. Um, at 11.4 mil, as the captain here just stated for the season finale.
That was the
Or
season 8
premiere.
premiere, yes.
Let's check out the 10th episode in the season, or I'm sorry, 9th episode in the season, Honor.
Right.
You're looking at $8.28 million
Ouch.
just from the initial. That's, I mean, come on, folks. We don't have to spell it out for you.
Yeah.
Uh,
But if you need
Now,
more than
I want
that,
to say because the last episode, the 16th episode, I'm
this
not going to say the number. I will leave that for the captain. But I do want to say that number is not the all-time lowest number.
no,
Um, the all-time lowest number for this season that I can see is episode 14
right?
at 6.3 million.
Yes. Now,
Captain, would you like
yeah,
to
I was
take it
gonna
from
say,
here? 'Cause
see, and that's awful. Don't get me wrong, but you would expect, I would say a certain degree of that would be expected because you would figure, some of the episodes in the middle of the seasons like are going to be a little lower. You'd figure the four hot episodes are going to be the season premiere, the mid-season finale, the mid-season premiere, and then the main season finale, right? So those should be your four hottest episodes of the entire season, right?
absolutely.
And you granted you're going to get some duds in between those. The number I have for the season 8 finale, 7.9 million viewers. That is a drastic decline from just about everything we've seen up until this point. And yes, there were some straggler episodes here and there that fluctuate that. For a season finale, that number is pitiful for The Walking Dead, especially not only any season finale, a season finale where the all-out war storyline arc ends, where a storyline arc that you've been building for 2.5 seasons ends. You have that is the second lowest season finale viewership that The Walking Dead has ever had, second only to the season finale of the first season, which gets a pass from me, by the way, because season 1 of The Walking Dead, obviously, those numbers are going to be low because not a lot of people know about the show. It's brand new. There were only 6 episodes in the season, etc. I could go on and on. But my point is, we have not seen numbers this low for The Walking Dead since season 1. That is a problem. That is a very big problem, right?
Yeah, that's a huge problem. Now, just if you're also including like mid-season,
Right,
finales,
right.
looking at season 8,
Yeah.
you're at episode 8, how it's got to be. You're
Uh-huh.
at 7.89 million, which
That's even
it's
lower.
what I'm seeing a pattern here.
Yeah.
I'm seeing episode 1 higher than the rest.
Yep. Episode 2.
Episode 8, you would think, would be higher than episode 9, but
Right.
it's not. Episode 9 is actually one of their higher ones with 8.2.
Well, that's only we
And
know
then,
why that was because everyone wanted to see because that kind of ended on a cliffhanger of whether or not Carl was
yeah.
really going to die or not, and then we found out that he did. So,
And then
um,
all of a sudden, after Carl dies,
surprise,
it
surprise, the
went from
numbers take another
8.28 million
nosedive.
to now I feel like there's a justifiable reason to read the rest.
Yes.
The episode after Carl dies,
Yes.
you're looking at 6.8 mil.
Ouch.
Following that one, 6.6. Following that one, 6.6. Following that one, 6.7.
Yo.
Following that one, 6.3.
Yeah.
Following that one, 6.6. To
Yeah.
the season finale at 7.9.
Yes. So, we don't want to sit here reading numbers for you guys all night because you can go on Wikipedia and do that yourself. But the point is killing Carl
It
off.
only drives the point home.
Yes, the point here is killing Carl off was arguably the worst decision the show has ever made, and it is reflected in the numbers. As obviously you could see, the numbers were nosediving in season 8 as is because, again, like I mentioned, the franchise of The Walking Dead really needed season 8 to hit a home run for them to kind of rejuvenate the series, and the fact that it didn't do that, the numbers speak for themselves. So now, like I said at the beginning of this entire thing, where did season 8 leave the Walking Dead franchise? And again, if I had to sum it up in one word, that word.
In the shitter.
Yes. Thank you, Mitchelonius.
I tried to throw a sound effect in there. My machine appears to be broken, so
no, I heard
I had
it.
to
I
improvise.
heard a homemade sound effect come through. um, so, yeah. So that's kind of that's kind of where we're at with The Walking Dead right now. But there is a glimmer of hope, maybe. But I
Yeah,
might
what's
just
that?
I was
What's
gonna
that
say
glimmer of hope?
I
Rick
might I
leaving the
might just
show?
I might just debunk my own glimmer of hope in the next few minutes. But okay, so now we kind of have established where The Walking Dead has left us at the end of season 8. Now I want to move on to the season 9 trailer for The Walking Dead and kind of what season 9 is advertising itself to be, I guess, via the trailer. So
Wah, 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 wah,
oh,
wah,
not
wah,
yet,
wah,
not
wah.
yet, not yet.
Oh,
Um,
I was testing the machine out. I think I got it working now.
you're getting it ready. Gotcha. So we got at Comic Con a couple of months ago. We got a very lengthy season 9 trailer for The Walking Dead. It was a little over 5.5 minutes long. I've watched it several times, as I know you have too. And I have a little list here that I wrote um, that highlights what I think are the major takeaways from the trailer from start to end. So I want to just kind of go over them with you, if we could. Um, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So the first one I have, I'm going to go in chronological order from the beginning of the trailer to the end of the trailer. I will say, I guess I should say before I start the trailer did not look bad. Honestly, I felt like the trailer, all in all, was not too bad. So we're going to start off in the beginning of the trailer, and we have Rick and Negan speaking in the jail cell in Alexandria, where Negan has been held after Rick decides to spare his life at the end of season 8. So we get our first look at Rick, who is now sporting a haircut and a big bushy gray beard. So this is our first indication that they have indeed
It's to
kept.
hide his pussy, ladies and gentlemen. To hide his pussy, which is on his
Stop.
face.
Oh, you stop. Um, so this is our first indication. Yeah, this is our first indication of the time jump that the comics provided at this same time. I don't know. Did the comics specify how long the time jump was, or did they not?
No, that wasn't exactly a major focus.
Right. No, that's just kind of
The
a point of interest for me because I didn't recall them specifying an exact amount of time. But from the looks of
well,
things, I would say it's maybe 3 to 5 years.
I could agree with that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't a drastic jump, but it was enough to where
Things
when you're living in a
changed.
timeline
Hmm.
like The Walking Dead, where you don't have all the proper medical care and
Hmm.
you know exactly the nutrients you're supposed to receive, and
The differences are noticeable.
the
Yes.
hygiene.
Yes.
When aging, it almost becomes like dog years to a degree.
Yeah.
At least that's how I feel.
Oh,
I don't
yeah,
know
I
how
could agree
you
with that
feel
to an
about that, but
extent.
I mean,
A little
it's
bit, yeah.
not 7 years to one, but I'm saying every one
You're
year
going to
might
see it a
seem
little
like a
more.
two.
Exactly.
You
Yeah,
know
you're
what
going to
I
see
mean?
it a
Your
little
bones are
more.
going to hurt a little more.
Of course. Yeah.
Um, so
Okay.
I that's why I think the time jump might seem more substantial than what it really is, because
Right.
we tend to forget about those minor things that isn't really a main focus of the show, such as like medical care, unless someone gets bit or hurt. I'm talking normal sickness, things
Right.
like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we don't necessarily think about that are going on in the world of The Walking Dead. Yes, definitely. Um, so back to the opening scene though. So Rick and Negan talking in the jail cell. So right off the bat, we are missing Carl within the first 30 seconds of this trailer because we both know that from the comic at this point, Carl is supposed to be the one talking to Negan in the jail cell. He's supposed to be the one having intricate, in-depth conversations with Negan as Negan essentially rots in the Alexandria jail cell. So right off the bat,
Correct.
we're missing Carl. Going forward a little bit, I want to say, there's throughout the background of the entire trailer, um, the conversation that Rick and Negan are having is kind of going on in the background of the trailer for basically the entire trailer, which was cool, I thought. Um, so the next big thing that I have to focus on is the fact that Rick is kind of explaining to Negan how things have changed since they took him out of power, and trying to you know paint a pretty picture in Negan's words about how everything is now and how good everything is and how much better everything is now in the world. Looking over the world, the next big thing that I noticed is everything kind of looks like medievalish almost in the world of The Walking Dead. Like the technology advancements that we see in the world of The Walking Dead are, to a medieval degree. Like before it was kind of like almost Neanderthal like with the limitations that they had, with the exception of a few people and places. Now everything looks a little more medievalish, where they have horses and they have everything's built up a little more, and it's farming and windmills and that kind of stuff. So things are a little more advanced now in the trailer.
It's almost like the restarting of civilization.
Yes, exactly. That's definitely what they're going for there, which is fine. Um, that kind of goes hand in hand with the next thing that I wrote down here, which is I noticed that they are introducing a lot of new characters in this season. A whole plethora of new characters, most of whom I have no idea who they are, and I'm sure most of whom I won't care about. um, but
Because they're gonna die in the first 3 episodes anyway.
Well, you can only hope. I've been hoping for that for 3.5 seasons now. But they seem to have a problem, and we're going to talk a lot about this in a little bit too. They seem to have a problem with what characters they kill and what characters they focus on the TV show. But anyway, so yeah, a lot of new characters being introduced into the show. Conspicuous by his absence throughout this entire trailer, of course, is Morgan, who we remember at the end of season 8. He went to basically live in the junkyard where Jadis and the trash people lived, because he was
Right.
losing his mind and he needed time away from everyone and everything to kind of get his head straight, I guess. So he's not there. I know, with the whole thing with him being moved to Fear the Walking Dead and all that, I'm a little, to be honest, because I've never watched Fear the Walking Dead, I'm a little confused as to when Fear the Walking Dead takes place chronologically, because I was kind of under the impression that that was kind of like a story. Morgan's insertion into that was almost like a that's where he was before he got to Alexandria with Rick and everybody. Correct me if I'm wrong. Do you know?
Um. Well, yeah. From what I understand, with the Fear of the Walking Dead, I did see the first episode of it,
Okay.
and from what I gathered from that first episode was that this was kind of what was going on while Rick was in the hospital.
Oh, so even before that. Okay.
Right, and then and I feel like that's why when he did find Morgan, Morgan was all, combat ready,
Right.
to a degree.
Right. Okay.
Um,
Gotcha.
the only defunk I have on my own theory is that, you don't see Morgan's wife or son.
Yeah, so
So
that's why I'm kind of the sense of like, I think for the majority of the Morgan stint in the Fear of the Walking Dead, I think chronologically that's supposed to be taking place, in that time period where, Rick and Morgan are separated. That's kind of what
right.
I'm
Oh,
thinking.
when he gave him the walkie-talkie.
Yeah,
Right, right.
either
I
that
got you.
or,
When they went their own way.
right. So, but I don't know that for a fact. That's just my theory. So, and again, I have to mention, this is a big mistake in my opinion. The decision that the producers made to kind of like move Morgan away from the main show and put him on Fear. I don't know if that's going to be permanent. I sure hope it's not, because in this troubling time on the main show, they need all the help they can get. As far as characters go, as far as long-standing characters go, and Morgan is one of the most long-standing characters on the show at this point. So I would hate to see them just get rid of him permanently, for no reason.
I
Anyway,
agree. He was
so
one of my favorite characters.
yes, and I really, not to go back to season 8 for too long, but I have to say this: as far as Morgan goes, I feel like season 8 didn't do much right. But one thing that I did appreciate was I appreciated the depth that they gave Morgan. I think that they gave him a lot of positive character development, even though he's, in a negative way, like descending into madness almost, like freaking out and all that. But I think that they have progressed his character forward in a good way, in my opinion. So, and I do like Morgan a lot. He is one of my favorite characters left on the show. So, um, I'm really hoping that that he does come back to the main cast sooner rather than later. Although it doesn't look like it's going to be, at least the first half of season 9 looks like is going to be Morganless, basically.
Yeah.
Right. So the next thing I want to mention, going back to the season 9 trailer, next thing I really took notice of in the season 9 trailer was the continuation, and I say this with a massive sigh, the continuation of the internal conflict, the internal struggle between everyone. So we get a sense of the internal struggle between like Rick and Maggie, and this is what we mentioned earlier. We have a scene in the trailer where Rick and Maggie are talking, and it kind of looks like Maggie saying like it's time for you to go, almost like it's almost like they're going to overthrow Rick. You have scenes in the trailer where you have Daryl and Rick kind of, riding a bike, and then Daryl throws the bike down, and they stare each other off, and Daryl says something to the effect of, "Are we on the same side, Rick?" And Rick says something to the effect of, "Oh, you tell me." So like they're
Well,
teasing.
you do remember when he punched him in the face, and in just even episodes we saw, they got into a fist fight.
Right, so they're definitely teasing that that's coming back, and they're also not, and more than just that, but they showed kind of a couple of different scenes in the trailer, where there's almost like a mass brawl, like a mass riot about to break out with various characters, and Daryl's roughing somebody up. I don't even know who he was, some nobody. Um,
Oh yeah, the dude with the ponytail.
yeah, roughing somebody.
It looks like Daryl beats him up more than once though. Like it looks like it's in different settings that he's and
Yeah,
it's
but
the
they're
same
using
guy it seems each time.
Yeah, but they're using creative photo editing, misdirection, photoshopping to kind of make something look like it's one way when it's not, and that's a big point I want to mention about the trailer also a little bit later. But yeah, this the continuation of the internal conflict, not just between main characters, but also between different groups. Like obviously now we have Alexandria, we have the Hilltop, we have the Kingdom, we have Oceanside, we have a couple others in there as well, new groups being discovered, and they have like trade routes, obviously going back to like the medieval-ish style of way everything's laid out
Caravans and
now.
stuff.
Exactly. Um, so yeah, we have all that, but here's the problem I have with that from a storytelling standpoint. You just had this massive war, presumably a few years prior, right, between Negan and the Saviors versus everybody else. Essentially, is what it boiled down to in the end.
Right.
Why, oh why, if you're anyone living in this Walking Dead world, would you want to revisit the internal conflict? Would you want to throw up fists again? Would you want to fight again with people when you still live in this post-zombie apocalyptic world where everyone's struggling to survive and things have gotten better? But yes, but why would you continue to risk your own existence, to risk your survival by having these petty, meaningless squabbles with other people? And I take issue with that from a storytelling standpoint, because it really just doesn't make sense to me that after everything that's happened in The Walking Dead, that there are still groups and people and everybody who still want to do this. Like it's just dumb in a sense. You know what I mean?
I always chalked it up to the lack of technology, like entertainment and things like that. Like
People need
because
something to do, right?
if you think about it, you think about us, even our civilization, not apocalyptic with zombies and shit, where
Right,
just as far back as the 1700s, when we were taming the West,
right.
people were shooting and killing each other for no reason.
Human nature, I
So,
guess, is the argument here, and I that is a great point. I can definitely see that.
I
So
mean, that would just be my thought.
I think you're onto something there. I do. I guess it's human nature to, to struggle, to conflict, to a certain extent. So that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where we are with that. I got a couple more of these. Another one is, the scene we got in the trailer with Jadis with the walkie-talkie communicating with the helicopter or attempting to communicate with the helicopter. Now this is a callback to something that happened in toward the end of season 8, where Jadis had taken Negan prisoner, which was, a really wacky filler diversion from, what was going on in the story.
Yeah, when he cried because like she almost broke or burnt Lucille.
Yep. Yeah. So in that episode, she was attempting to radio communicate with a helicopter. Now, there's a lot of speculation, and I tend to agree with this, that helicopter belongs to a. There's another group, I don't recall the name, that's supposed to be in the comics. It's like a group of advanced individuals that are incredibly technologically advanced. Yes. Um, that
Correct.
yes, and Jadis has some sort of dealings with them, and there's a lot of fan theory speculating that the woman in the older woman in the white, I think her name was Georgie, who came to the hilltop and bartered with Maggie, toward the end of season 8 as well. You remember her?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. There's a lot
They're
of
very skeptic as to who she was.
Yes. Yeah. So there's a lot of speculation that she is affiliated with that group, and we're going to see her again, more than likely. So yeah, that's just kind of whatever to me. Like, I mean, more kind of like side characters. Yeah, but it would be interesting to see how the whole thing with what Jadis's connection would be to those people, because if you figure, obviously all the trash people were exterminated in season 8, so they don't exist minus Jadis. Um, but yeah, it would be interesting if there was some kind of connection there, because you see how the trash people were existing and living and doing things versus this other group of technologically advanced individuals. So,
Which also brings into question, like, knowing these people.
right.
It doesn't. I won't say maybe she doesn't have exactly. It's not like a good relationship with them to a degree, because don't you think that during all of this,
She could have called them for
if you
help.
had that if you had that ability the whole time to call in a helicopter with some techie type of motherfuckers,
Yeah.
that when everything went to shit and like you knew that the saviors were going to be coming and knocking,
Yeah.
and you're sitting there naked sculpting some junk shit.
Yeah. You think you would have given these guys a call and said, "Hey, I'm gonna
Hey,
need some
like,
help here."
now I'm gonna need some help, and whatever you wanted me to do for it before, I'm game now, because I'd rather not die. Like,
Yeah, you would
I
think.
don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. Definitely. I actually almost glossed over. Well, that's that. Yeah. There's another thing. This one kind of feeds back to the whole internal conflict thing that I was talking about earlier. So throughout the trailer. There's a lot of suggestion that Daryl is going to turn on and potentially kill Rick. And throughout the trailer, we see Daryl, being violent with people for seemingly no reason. We see him sharpening a knife. We see someone, lower half in the trailer, staggering with blood dripping on their boots, staggering, down the road. And there's a lot of speculation that from fans that this is Rick staggering after Daryl stabs him, and that this is like the final moments of Rick. And well, there's a lot of different theories about a lot of different things in the trailer, but that is one of the big ones that I've seen. That Daryl is, the suggestion by the trailer anyway, what the trailer wants us to think is that there's going to be this moment where Daryl betrays Rick and he is the cause of the death of Rick. And I just have to tell you, personally, for me, I think that is complete and total bullshit. um,
I mean,
I think,
and a side note, I think someone else was going to be getting fired after this, because a huge difference between that and the comics is that Rick
mhm,
is the survivor in the end. Like,
Yes. Yeah. No. And that's
Through it all.
when we're. I was gonna say when we're going to talk about the behind the scenes aspect of all this. That's a big point I want to bring up too. Um, which is coming shortly. But yeah, so I think this is all a lot of this trailer, in my opinion, is misdirection, and it's a creative cut and paste video editing misdirection, which is what a lot of franchises love to do with their trailers because they love to make you think that things look like they're going to be one way and then they're the other way. And I think that's what they're trying to suggest with the trailer, obviously, is that the demise of Rick, which we know, which we'll talk about why we know this in a second, but that we know is inevitably coming in the first half of season 9, is going to be the doing of Daryl. And I think that, like I said, A, I think that is complete and total bullshit. And B, I think that if they choose to play the story out that way, that will be yet another horribly inexcusable mistake on their part, on the creative team's part. So I sure hope that that is not what they're planning on doing. But I would think you would probably agree with that. You think that would be a negative way to go, yes?
I mean, only just as negative as killing Carl.
Yeah, only as bad as the worst decision, the previous worst decision they've ever made on the show.
I mean,
Um,
if you make a bad decision, I guess you should try to top it at some point, right?
oh no. Well, I mean, it's a sinking ship at this point, more or less. So maybe
Yeah, they're
I
like, well,
don't
you know
know.
what? Let us be the ones to drop the bomb.
I guess I don't even know, dude. I guess. The
uh,
last thing I want to mention about the trailer, and this is the most significant part of the trailer to me, and my favorite part of the trailer was at the
ooh, me too.
yeah,
Excited. Yes,
yes,
say it.
at the end of the trailer. You have Eugene and Rosita running away from a herd of walkers. You have them sliding down a hill and covering themselves in mud to hide from the walkers. And as the herd of the walkers stumble by, and I actually missed this the first time that I watched the trailer. I had to go back and rewatch it a couple times to get this. We heard very distinctly, mind you, the more you, if you're listening for it, you can hear it very distinctly. You hear one of the walkers, quote unquote walkers, whisper, "Where are they?" And yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is the teaser for the introduction of the Whisperers, which is the next major arc in the comics. There
Hey,
you have
Captain.
it. Yes.
I think you might have had a little bit of a mic hiccup there because I didn't hear it.
You didn't hear the whispering?
Nope, do it again, just in case, just so the crowd knows
I
exactly
could do
what we're
I could
referring
I was gonna try to do it in the same
to.
voice
Great.
that they did it, but that might be a bad idea. But you know what? I'm gonna do it anyway.
Yeah, let's give them a show.
Here's my best Walker impression. Where are they?
And you know, the funny thing is, I've got goosebumps.
Uh huh.
So just saying, it sounded just like what I heard,
Well, thank you.
except
I
magnified, obviously, because you don't have all the other stuff in the background in the trailer, like the other
yes
walkers all like. "Rah."
yes. So
But that's exactly what I heard when, and then I also had a thought too. Who's to say every single one of them weren't whisperers?
yeah,
Because last time I checked, throwing some.
you all right
Excuse
there?
me. Yeah, yeah. You ever drink water and it kind of get on the wrong pipe?
Yes.
Um,
No problem.
it just it made me wonder when was the last time you can just throw some dirt that has water mixed into it
Yeah.
on yourself and shield yourself from walkers that like
Can smell you
eat
basically.
creatures that yeah
Yeah,
like
because the
their only design their only
yes,
design is to know where you are when you're near them and like
yes,
last time I checked, people were just like putting walker guts on themselves. The
yeah,
whisperers themselves, spoiler alert, what they do
yeah,
is they wear the skin of the walkers, therefore they smell like them.
yes, absolutely. And I have to say, this is probably the only part of the trailer that got me genuinely excited for season 9. was
Same here.
this scene right here, and
Same here.
yes, and yeah,
But it was
so
bittersweet, wasn't it? Because of
yes,
the whole
that's the next thing.
non-Carl factor.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Oh,
That's the next thing that I was going to say is this is a very bittersweet thing because obviously, like I said, the Whisperers is the next major arc in the comics that will obviously be coming to light on the TV show. Now, I will say before I go on, I will say this: conservatively speaking, knowing The Walking Dead and know how they tend to drag things out, I would say the earliest we're probably going to get this out on the actual show is probably the mid-season finale. I would say that's probably when this is going to take place on the show. Definitely no sooner than that, in my opinion. Um, but yeah, it did get me genuinely excited. But the big but that comes along with this,
the
um,
elephant in the room
yes, is
with the
the
sheriff's hat on.
yes is the thing that I've been alluding to talking about, which is the behind the scenes, not only the fact that Carl is no longer around because this is, the Whisperer's arc is the arc that Carl is supposed to basically step up and almost become the main character in. So obviously, doing the Whisperer's arc on the TV show is going to be missing a huge amount with the absence of Carl. Having said that, um, the big picture here, aside from that, is the fact that all of the stuff going on behind the scenes of The Walking Dead kind of takes this away from me and kind of makes it, even more bittersweet to the point that what's going on, but we know what's going on behind the scenes of The Walking Dead. Um, and that, of course, is the last thing I think we have to talk about here, and that is the fact that, and I'm sure you all know this already, the fact that Andrew Lincoln, the actor who plays Rick on the show, did not re-sign his contract with AMC and therefore will be leaving the show after he finishes his 6 episodes, which is less than half of a season worth of episodes on the show. Not only him, but also Lauren Cohan, who plays Maggie, will also be leaving the show after 6 episodes in season 9.
And might I add, it's funny that these two characters are the ones, like two of the most pivotal characters in the show, next to
Left.
Daryl, Carl, you know,
Yes.
uh, are making an exit. And, she lost Glenn,
Yes.
and Rick lost Coral. You
Yes.
know? And I feel like if anything, it's those actors being kind of like, well, not so much Maggie, but maybe she has other opportunities coming her way. But I
She
mean, Rick,
does. Yes.
I really think, because I even believe I heard in interviews that he wasn't happy
With the creative
about the
direction of
decision
the show.
to, with Carl. So I think it put a bad taste in his mouth. I think he's a smart man and sees the direction the show's going, and would rather leave it in greatness than,
Ride the sinking ship to the bottom of the
where
ocean.
exactly. Like I feel like he feels like, this show's gone as far as it can, and if I stay on it any further, it's gonna be like B-rate, where, like, you got a lot of horror movies that are great. Everybody likes Friday the 13th, Friday the 13th 1,
Mhm.
2, 3. Well, when you've got like Jason Goes to Manhattan, or Jason in Space, Leprechaun in the Hood, I think that's where
Where there's
he
been a
kind of sees
distinct
the
climb.
show,
Yeah.
is kind of going to, where it's like, what more can they get out of this? And I think he just doesn't want to be a part of it. So, I salute Rick Grimes, as the character, and I salute Mr. Lincoln for playing it. But I can't be mad at the decision he's made.
Not at all.
I
No.
think a lot of people will be disappointed.
Oh, sure.
I
I'm one
think
of them.
maybe some people will even. I think some might even send hate mail like, you killed the show. But no, like, people realize the show is killing itself, and he just would rather not go down with the ship.
Yeah, and not to take away from your point, because I agree with everything you just said, but he has stated in interviews as well the primary reason for his exiting of the show is that he wants to be at home with his family to spend more time with his family, which is 100% understandable. Cannot knock the guy for that at all because he lives in England, mind you, and he
Right.
has to spend 6 out of every 12 months of the year in Georgia to film the show, which is obviously a huge deal for him, especially he has young kids, I believe, as well. So I absolutely understand his decision. Will not knock it at all. As far as Lauren Cohen, aka Maggie, goes, she actually has a new show coming out on CBS, I believe it is, in the fall. She has other movie roles and other opportunities that are opening up for her, so she just doesn't want to do the show anymore, from what I understand. Um,
It's a career move. That's
exactly.
respectable too.
Exactly. And as much as I don't want those characters to leave the show because I feel like those characters, Rick in particular, would be the only hope the show has of making a comeback, at the same time, I completely understand and will not knock the decisions that these people are making at this point because they have very legitimate reasons for doing so, in my opinion. Um,
Who knows? Maybe Rick will give Negan the keys before he,
Before he checks out.
you know,
I have a
then you get Negan
prediction.
back.
Yeah, I kind of have a prediction. I guess we should save predictions for until we're done with this, which is going to be soon. But yeah, so that's the bombshell, kind of that is going on behind the scenes, and I feel like what's going on behind the scenes of The Walking Dead right now is actually bigger news, is actually more important than what's going on the show itself in the foreground, which is again another huge problem in my opinion. If you have what's going on behind the scenes of your show getting more attention than what's going on in front of the camera, that is a problem, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. When you're more interested in people that are out in real life are doing in the show, like, oh, production problem here, production problem there. This guy's not getting along with this guy. It's a soap opera now.
Yeah, this guy's not re-signing his contract, and I, you know what,
Yeah.
I just have to say this because this right here is eating me alive inside. So I have to get this out here for all of you to hear. This is the situation on The Walking Dead right now. You have an actor, Andrew Lincoln, Rick Grimes. You have an actor, Chandler Riggs, Carl Grimes. You have one actor who doesn't want to do the show anymore. You have one actor who actually relocates his family to Georgia so he can be closer to the filming of the show. Clearly wants to do the show still, right? You kill
Oh
off
yeah, I forgot he did that.
you kill off the
Oh
character who
wow!
moved
Talk about
to
a kick in the
Georgia.
dick.
You kill off the
Oh,
character who moved to Georgia to do your show, and now the other character says, I don't want to do it anymore, so you end up with both characters gone.
talk about a kick in the
What
dick right
the
there. Oh,
fuck?
mom, dad, the show's going great. Can you imagine the conversation? Mom, dad, show's going great, man. I got my season coming up with the Whisperer.
Yep.
Everyone's bullshit. So, you know what? I got some money. Let's move. They move. Family moves. Hey, first day of work. Hey, Carl, here's the new script. He reads halfway into it. What the fuck? Like,
Oh my god, yeah, dude. Like,
hopefully you had the receipt to your house, bro. My bad and shit. Like, I
yeah,
don't know what to tell you.
yeah, exactly. Like, what else can you say besides that? Like, that's it right there, you know?
Like, I wonder if Carl in that meeting even said to them, like, you do realize I moved to Georgia, right, for this?
Yeah, I would if
And
I
it's
was him.
probably like,
I would have brought that up.
yeah, you live and you learn, right?
Yeah, no,
That's show business, kid.
Scott Gimple, producer of the year. There you go. um,
If there
yeah,
was ever an award for someone who should, like, never take part in another great show ever again.
who should never have a job in Hollywood again? There you go.
Oh,
Yeah,
terrible.
so that's that situation there. For those of you who didn't know, that's what happened there. So that I'm sorry, but that just
That's what grinds the captain's gears, fellas.
yes, that
Ladies
will
and gentlemen, that is what grinds his gears.
this will eat me alive till basically forever. Every time I think about The Walking Dead people, this will eat me alive because this is just insanity in my opinion. And here's the other thing. You have to know, okay? Andrew Lincoln just didn't wake up one morning and say, "Hey, I don't want to do this anymore. Bye." Like people had
Yeah,
to have known prior to right now. People have had to know that he was thinking about leaving the show, right? Someone had to know. Some producers, some writers, someone somewhere had to know that he was thinking about leaving the show. So why, oh why, Walking Dead again? Why would you remove the only character that could possibly have filled the void of Rick? Carl.
the
Carl,
it's called the Gimple effect. I've just
yes.
named it. Trademark. Trademark. If you
Trademark
guys
right
like
here.
the Gimple effect, hashtag it in the comments below as you smash that like button.
There you go. Yep. So Carl, again, this is just going into my own personal opinion. Carl is the only character that could have made the death of Rick's character palatable, in my opinion. The only way the show could have continued with the death of Rick, because up until this point, Rick has been undoubtedly the main character of this show. And if you decide to kill him off, remove him from the show, whatever, for whatever reason, you need Carl to fill that void. And actually, I believe I was on another podcast. I was on Crash Live podcast. A little bit of time ago, we were talking about The Walking Dead, and we had this discussion actually, where we said that literally. If they, with them deciding to kill Carl off, because at that point killing Carl off was relatively fresh, um, the decision to kill Carl off is basically the studio putting all their eggs in one basket, and that is Andrew Lincoln's basket, Rick's basket, saying, okay, the show is 100% on your shoulders, because the story of The Walking Dead, people, from day one, to me anyway, has always been the father-son story of Rick and Carl, and a father doing everything that he could to protect his son from the apocalypse, from the world around him. And with the death of Carl, they destroyed that story, which crushed a lot of people, myself included. And now with the death of Rick, it's almost like, what is there left, or the presumed death of Rick. Although I will make a bold prediction later and say I don't think he actually dies, um, but yes, with the absence of Rick now, what is there left? You tell me, honestly, what is there left?
Well, let's look who we're left with. We're left with Michonne.
Yeah,
We're left with Carol. We're left with
yeah,
Daryl.
yeah.
I mean, if Rick is gonna die,
Hmm.
I'm thinking whoever kills him is gonna more than likely be the one to run things. So I'd hate to think. My hope is that Daryl would end up in charge because he was always Rick's right hand. But
Hmm.
I
You
don't
would hate
want
to think
Daryl
of,
to be the one to end him.
yeah,
Yeah,
you would hate to think
So
that Daryl would be the one to kill Rick because
so
it wouldn't be justified, obviously.
right. So I guess my hope would be that if someone attempts to kill Rick,
Hmm.
and I say attempts, and Rick kills them,
Yeah.
and he's walking bloody,
Hmm.
and maybe Daryl finds him, and
Has to
that's
put
when
him out
that
of his
kind of
misery.
misery and passing of the torch, and it's up to you now, and
I'll
things like that.
maybe. I mean, that would, I'd say one of two ways. That would be an okay way to handle it for me, even though there's really no good way to handle it at this point. Um, but yeah, the other thing that I was thinking was that I don't necessarily think that they're going to kill his character off. I have a suspicion, or I have a theory in my mind that he is going to serve his 6 episodes, obviously. I feel like his character is not going to be killed, but rather written off. I feel like they're going to do something where his character either gets exiled, like say Maggie and whoever Daryl take over and they exile him and he's just gone because of that. Or I feel like maybe, something's going to happen, like, the old back from season 5, I think it was, the old Glenn under the dumpster thing, where
Yeah,
where it's like,
yeah,
is he dead? Is he not dead? What the hell's going on? Oh, well, let's make everybody
yeah,
wait another 4 episodes to find out.
yeah, exactly. Yep,
Like,
this is what make everybody wait,
yeah, maybe Rick will be under the dumpster. Who
and then all of us,
knows?
yeah,
um, but yeah, like I
then
don't.
he'll decide to renew his contract. He'll come out of the dumpster.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, because I'm thinking at the absolute least, whenever they decide to end the show, they have to have him back at least for the series finale of the show. So in my gut, I don't
So
feel like.
what? They're just gonna have him go off into the woods like, I'm gonna go fend for myself now, guys. I've worked and sacrificed and lost so much, but keep my daughter. I'll see you guys later.
Hey, I'm not
I
saying
know
it
you'll.
makes any sense. I'm just saying that I see. I think that would be, like I said, there's no good solution to this situation. There's really not.
Right.
But I think that not. I think the only thing worse than, or the only thing worse than not killing Rick off would be killing Rick off, in my opinion. So I don't want to see his character go. Like, there's no, especially because there's no Carl to pick up the mantle. Because no one else, in my opinion, not even Daryl, who, again, behind the scenes, by the way, has been offered and accepted a substantial amount of money to re-sign with the show, because they're planning on shifting the focus of the show to him after Rick exits the show. Um, I feel like no one else can properly pick the mantle up of Rick, not even Daryl. So I don't feel like killing him off would be the smartest move. I think the smart play on their part would be doing that. Would be just find a way to write him off, to exile him. To get him away somehow, and then they can always, if he decides to come back for the end of the show somewhere down the road, they can do that. So that's what I'm gonna bank on. I could be completely wrong, but that's gonna
Who
be.
knows? Maybe they'll have Scott Gimple come back and he'll write a story to where Rick becomes and joins with the Whisperers.
You know what? I don't know. There's a ton of crazy fan theories, out there as to what happened. I think that might have been one of them, actually. Is
Oh,
like,
really?
because I guess, yeah, there's a ton of fan theories about what's going to happen to Rick, because we all know that's the caveat to all this, is we all know that Rick is not going to be on the show somehow anymore after 6 episodes. My money, obviously, because half a season is 8 episodes. My money is there's going to be a couple episodes in between he's not on. The mid-season finale is going to be the last we see of Rick, for now at least. Um, so yeah, that's my theory, my fan theory on that. So yeah, I just have to make one more comment though, because I think we've just about covered everything. But another thing that's really burning on my mind that I have to address is the fact that, okay, um, Rick leaving the show is obviously the worst thing that could happen for the show right now, right?
Right.
Worse than the show being canceled, in my opinion. um, but I think that the Rick leaving the show would not be nearly as bad, would not even be half as bad as it is if Carl were still alive. I think you'd
Very
probably
true.
agree with that, because here's the thing, is that if you have, I almost feel like, if Carl was still alive, I would in some way, and you're going to think I'm crazy for saying this, I would in some way almost feel like Rick dying or leaving the show would actually be a good thing if Carl was still around, because that would be a true passing of the torch moment. That would be son, I've done everything I could and my time is up, and now it's your time to take my revolver and step up and be the man to lead and protect these people into the future, you know and
Yep.
you have so much potential for storytelling in that situation. You have, Carl becoming a man. You have potential replacement father figures for Rick, like Negan, even, or Daryl, or Morgan, or whoever. You have so much. possibility, so much potential for storytelling wasted with the absence of Carl. And that's not just even factoring in Rick dying. If Rick were to, be around and alive with Carl, there's still so much more potential for storytelling, and and it all revolves around Carl. It really does. And again, I hate to keep bringing us all back to the how horrible that Carl being gone is for the show, but please, if you can think of any way, shape, or form, if anyone listening can think of any way, shape, or form that Carl being gone from the show is a good thing, please let me know in the comments section, because I have spent a lot of time thinking about this and I have not one positive takeaway for the absence of Carl on this show.
Same here. And like you said, I think when you got rid of Carl, like you said, you made a very excellent point that I didn't even fully consider, which was you've taken away so much potential for the show. Like you've literally taken the life of the show and took half of it away, if not more,
Yep.
with the death of that character. So that's a very good point, I think, to end on. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So
Food for thought, people. Food for thought.
yes, the storytelling potential that we are going to miss because of that character is astronomical to me.
I mean, because in the show, the development of Carl was so intricate. I mean, he's been near death a few times. He was a scaredy cat, and then he was like a badass, and he was a sociopath, and then he was caring.
And he lost his
Like
eye, and
he went from shooting a guy in cold blood
yeah.
to getting bit trying to bring a guy back that his dad was like, fuck off.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly on the show.
in between, that's the drastic change. And then in between that, he went from uh, not really respecting his dad and not wearing a hat anymore to donning the hat again to being such a fearless badass that,
yeah,
he sneaks onto one of Negan's trucks, kills some of his people.
yep.
Like, the character development there
It's been amazing.
is
It
almost,
really
in my
has.
mind,
Yeah,
why? Because it's all been laid to waste now because you took all of that time and energy and investment into people just to watch it die because he got bit doing what I've seen him do many times
yeah,
with or without a gun.
yeah.
And he got overtaken by two walkers when we've seen him go through hordes with his
With like a
father and,
pocket
and
knife.
groups of
Yeah,
people taking on multiple. Like they rounded the corner there. He didn't even need to go over there. They were eating something. Like they could have walked past, but he
yeah,
was like, "No, we got to kill him." He takes his knife out,
yeah.
and come
It's
on, like you couldn't have.
no, that was the
I
word.
don't know.
No,
That's
you're
what
right, dude.
burns inside of me.
That's what
That's
grinds
what burned the
Mitchelonius's
way it
gears.
freaking happened.
Oh, dude, absolutely. Like, there's no question for me. Like, that makes his character death just that much worth. As bad as his character death is, just in general, the way that it happened makes it exponentially worse. It really
You know,
does. And there's
he couldn't have even like gotten bit trying to save Judith. Like
yeah,
some random dude
yeah,
that's probably gonna like die in like episode 2 or 3 or 1.
yeah.
Like I don't know.
I know, dude. I
I
know. And
don't
again,
know.
I hate to keep circling back to it, but it's just such a big deal that it's hard not to. It really is.
It's the biggest deal of the season. I
It
mean,
really is.
you would
Maybe
you would
even of the
hope that
whole
the
show
finale
potentially.
with you would think that like his throat slit and the way that happened and the way the finale went would be like detrimental, but no, like just the fact that that happened,
Yeah.
like a part of me being as much of a fan as I am almost did not watch. I was someone who, even as shitty as season 7 was, I was someone who was every week dedicated to watching.
Hmm. Same.
This year I discovered TiVo, people. Okay, and I used it. I watched it, but I watched it when I wanted to, not because I had the urge to. I watched it because I was a fan. And if that continues to go in that direction, season 9 could be the last one.
You're right, dude. You're absolutely right, and that's the main point I think here, is that something that was once so popular and once so good and once of such a high quality, in my opinion. And again, not to say that it was perfect, because it definitely wasn't, but we have seen a very distinct and drastic decline in the quality of this show over the last couple of seasons, and it hit, I think, rock bottom with, part one of hitting rock bottom is Carl's death. Part two is going to be the end of Rick, or the exit of Rick, one way or the other, um, on the show. Um, and then it's like, this is the last big point I wanted to bring up that, just really, sticks with me, that I don't quite understand. It almost feels like they are trying to turn The Walking Dead into Fear the Walking Dead, essentially. And I don't know if you've kind of got this sensation about the show either, because the last couple of seasons, especially the last one in particular, with the way that they handled getting rid of Carl, they've really
I won't.
been.
I mean, I agree to a degree. I wouldn't necessarily say they're trying to turn it into it, but what I think The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead, I think in a way, what people didn't plan on, they probably figured everyone who watches The Walking Dead is going to watch the Fear of the Walking Dead. But what they've done is that they've created two separate fan bases now.
Yes.
Some people like Fear the Walking Dead better. Some people like The Walking Dead better. So maybe what they're actually trying to do is phase out the original,
Script and the original
leading
story.
show
Right.
and kind of take it to like what they do with Star Wars, when they started you with Luke Skywalker, and then
Yeah.
those movies are good and they're great. The classics are great, but
They
they
want to
weren't
phase
as
the classics out and
great.
bring the new generation in, is what they're trying to do. Yeah. And
Exactly,
that's my point, was that I wasn't trying to say that they're trying to copy Fear the Walking Dead, but what I'm saying is, they're like, Fear the Walking Dead is nothing but a spin-off, obviously, of The Walking Dead. And
right?
that's, like, to me, the main show of The Walking Dead is becoming a spin-off, like, to me, because of the fact that they're deviating so drastically from the comics with all these decisions, that they are killing off these crucial characters to the story of the comics, and they are focusing and emphasizing and developing on characters that may very well not exist, or may well not have existed, or it doesn't matter if they exist or if they don't exist, like, it just, like, they're just changing everything to the extent that, like, they're ruining the original script, the original story of what this was supposed to be, and the reason why so many people enjoyed this show to begin with, and they're just taking all that away from us. And it's like, what the hell? Like, that's just the way it feels like to
Mm-hmm.
me. And I guess that's a life lesson, folks. As far as entertainment goes, inevitably, just
Never hire Scott Gimple.
yeah, no, that's a good one too. But my moral of the story is this: most everything you love will eventually turn to shit. And this, I think, is a prime example of that. And it pains me to say it, as a very long-standing fan of both the TV show and, to a lesser extent, the comics, but still, um, yeah, that's kind of where we are with The Walking Dead. So I will kind of end things by saying, after the first half of the season plays out the way it's going to play out, with the exit of both Rick and Maggie, which I know we haven't given a lot of love to Maggie, but her her leaving of the show is huge, obviously, as well. I think it's overshadowed by Rick's leaving of the show, obviously, but make no mistake about it, the absence of Maggie is huge for the show as well, and will be huge for the show as well. Um, so I guess, my final thought would be this: after Rick and Maggie leave the show, what reason do I have to watch? And I'm gonna watch. Trust me, I will. And I may even be back here talking about it, at some point, with you. But, um, what I need now, the only way that I'm going to continue to be a fan of this show, is if the show can successfully invent a new reason for me to watch the show. Because the original reason that I watch the show will be gone with Rick in the first half of season 9. So what I need from the show, and don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this is impossible, but in my opinion, this is highly improbable. um, what I need from the show is I need them to give me a new reason to watch a 9-year-old show, and that is going to be a damn difficult feat to accomplish. I don't know what it feels like for you, but that's what it feels like for me.
I mean, if I had any final thoughts, it would just be I hope as much as they've worked deconstructing the greatness that was The Walking Dead, they can put that same amount of effort into hopefully rebuilding it, or else it is just gonna eventually become one of them shows that maybe you watch, maybe you don't.
Right.
It's not gonna be the show that people run to their TVs for anymore. So, and I feel like it's already 3/4 of the way there. But I mean, if you agree with me and Bernard, and uh, and you enjoyed the conversation at the captain's table,
Yeah.
uh,
Feel free.
put that in the comments down there and hit that like button. And I'm gonna hand it back over to the captain here and
Oh, thank you.
let him do what he does
I was gonna
best.
say, yeah, you already did half my plugs for me. But yes, I was gonna say, thank you for watching again, everybody. Hope you all enjoyed. Hit the like button, leave a comment, subscribe, share if you did enjoy. I want to thank my buddy Mitchelonius for joining me here to have this discussion.
You're very welcome, sir. Thank you for having me. It's been
No,
an honor to sit at your table and debate the ups and downs of this emotional roller coaster known as The Walking Dead.
absolutely, definitely, great talk. So that'll do it. So that is it. And stay tuned for more episodes of the Captain's Table, by the way. There will be more to come. And we will see you next time.